I just want to preface this video by saying that this is in no way, shape, or form me attacking or discrediting the hard work that the developers at 343 Industries have done. We are in a weird time period within the video game industry where there is a lot of public discourse between the creators of these franchises and the community members who play them, and way too often have I seen these lines crossed. What needs to be understood is that we are all still human, and there is a level of respect that needs to be upheld when communicating with other individuals. Just because there is something you do not agree with, it does not warrant any hostile behavior. Video game developers are often worked to the bone to deliver a product to us out of love and passion for the franchise. So please think twice before saying something you may regret. This is not an upload to spread negativity. This is simply a video that is meant to create conversation and insight. Please enjoy the video. The past few weeks have been a glorious time for Halo fans and content creators to rejoice. After a long wait, we were shown a plethora of new content and news during Xbox's E3 showcase event, followed by a 12-minute overview Vidoc that was released by 343 a day after. We got a glimpse of what to expect from the multiplayer experience, including a whole new set of ability-based equipment, Spartan customization, personal AI, a firing range coined as the Academy, and the revolutionary Battle Pass system. There was a little something for everyone, for old school and new school Halo players alike. But now that the dust has settled and the hype and excitement around the Infinite reveal has calmed down a bit, it's time we talk about something extremely important that needs to be addressed. So far, the multiplayer gameplay looks promising, but whether it will actually be good is all dependent on one key factor: map design. Halo has been known to have some of the most iconic maps in all of video game history, but in recent iterations of the franchise, it definitely seems like the focus on the maps has kind of taken a backseat, from my perspective at least. Halo 5 is the prime example of this, as when it launched, it was only shipped with 8 arena maps and 3 Warzone maps. Big Team Battle did not receive any dedicated maps, nor was it even a playlist at launch, but that's a topic for a completely different video. Strictly speaking, upon the traditional 4v4 experience, 8 seems like a reasonable amount of maps to include for a launch, theoretically speaking. Unfortunately, it did not play out as well. As expected of any multiplayer game, not every person is going to love every single map. Some will be loved more than others, and some will be disliked. And in most multiplayer experiences, games will allow you to vote for which map you want to load into while in the pre-game lobby. Halo 5 sadly did not have this feature. This is when the discussion of multiplayer maps in Halo really began to take hold and become a hot topic of conversation, as players were being forced to play on maps they really did not like. Hence why new maps were being demanded by the community just a few weeks into the game's release. However, for Halo Infinite, 343 have expressed that they want to revert back to Halo's roots and focus on what makes Halo, Halo. It's sandbox.
What makes Halo feel like Halo? I feel like the answer to that question is the sandbox. Like, the sandbox is Halo.
And in order to express that sandbox, it needs a place to shine in. And that is why multiplayer maps are so important and what can ultimately make or break a game. For the rest of this video, I want to go over all the different aspects of all the great Halo maps and the key components of each that has made them so beloved. The first key component that every Halo map needs is that it just needs to be fun to play in. From what we saw in the multiplayer reveal trailer and overview, I think the entire Halo community can agree that the game mechanically looks fun. As mentioned previously, no matter how fun and advanced the gameplay mechanics of the game are, the sandbox needs a play space to thrive in. And from what we've seen so far, it seems like 343 Industries are building the maps from the ground up to account for all the new weapons and abilities that are being introduced.
The levels define pace for the game, how frantic it is, and they define that iconic fantasy for players as they're entering that match. What do they want to do? What type of experience are they hoping to have? What kind of combat, what kind of dance floor is there available to have that combat in?
That is a huge step in the right direction. From a strictly social standpoint, it's important to create a fun and balanced ecosystem for every single player. Halo 5 went in a very different direction with its multiplayer by having developed maps that were heavily focused on being competitive, which was understandable given the feedback 343 received from Halo 4 and the pleas from the competitive scene asking for a more tailored experience for them. However, many of the social and casual community felt like they were left in the dark, and players felt like they had to, quote, snort a line of G Fuel every time they wanted to just simply hop on and have a chill time with friends. However, Halo Infinite looks like it might have found that middle ground between the two, creating a fun social environment for players to mess with all that the sandbox has to offer, while still maintaining that balance and even playing field that the Halo legacy is known to have. This is indicated by specific details that have been revealed to us, like vehicles returning back to 4v4 game modes. But with the addition of all the new abilities and new weapons that are being placed on the maps, like the skewer for example, the sandbox now gives players more options to counter these vehicles that in previous Halo titles seemed like they were too overpowered to keep in 4v4 settings. This is just one example of how important map design is to create a fun yet balanced gameplay. And hopefully, with all the other maps, there will be other ways in which players can interact with the map besides vehicles to create a fun, unique experience. The second key component I want to talk about is the competitiveness of the maps. With esports still rapidly growing, all eyes are going to be on Halo Infinite to see if it can deliver a spectacular show and return to its former glory from the MLG days. Therefore, it is integral that Halo Infinite houses a competitive ecosystem for both players to play in and spectators to watch. Creating a balanced map layout is one thing, but it's also important to create maps that are fun to watch players interact in. It's important that maps have interactives, verticality, trick jumps and tech, head peeks, and most importantly, even starts. These are all things that reward players with the better game sense and map knowledge. It encourages players and teams to fight together and rotate for map and power weapon control to put themselves in advantageous positions against the enemy team. And the best competitive Halo maps are ones that take full advantage of these aspects and put them into practice. When discussing the best competitive Halo maps, a common claim that is made by a select group of community members is that symmetrical maps is synonymous with competitive. While it may be true, statistically speaking, that majority of the Halo maps that are used in competitive settings are indeed symmetrical, I believe that it is more of a coincidence rather than a correlation. Specific examples include maps like Halo 2's Lockout and Halo 3's Guardian. Although from a designer standpoint, it might be more difficult to create an asymmetrical map while maintaining competitive integrity, with the right spawns, weapon placements, and game type, you can still make a competitive game mode work. So far, based off my analysis and the gameplay and images that we've seen from the trailers, we can infer that at least one of the 5 maps has a symmetrical layout. Not to say that this worries me to see only one symmetrical map so far, but if there is going to be more asymmetrical maps than symmetrical, then there definitely would need to be some extensive playtesting and tuning that is required in order to make it balanced for 4v4 play. But I think it's possible. One asymmetrical map that I think works really well in competitive play is actually Plaza in Halo 5. On paper, one would think that it seems like it would be unbalanced for 4v4 competitive play, but Plaza is a perfect example of how a map can truly complement the sandbox mechanics of a game. With Halo 5's advanced movement, thruster packs, clamber, and slide mechanics, Plaza takes full advantage of what Halo 5's gameplay has to offer, and there are insane movement plays and rotations that can be executed for those who have the tech skill and map knowledge. That, added on with the Halo 5 exclusive game type Strongholds, made for a beloved HDS game type for both players and spectators. And with Halo Infinite's map pool, I would love to see maps take the same approach with all the offensive and defensive equipment that are being introduced that would allow more ways for players to take control or hold certain positions on the map. Pair that with possibly a brand new innovative game type, and we have liftoff. Now, before we move on to the last component of great Halo maps, there is one thing I would like to address, and some of you may disagree with my stance, and that's going to be about map remakes. In my personal opinion, I think map remakes are not a good thing. I believe maps should be unique, tailored for that specific game sandbox and mechanics. When playing a new Halo, players should feel like they are having a brand new experience. But when those maps are reinserted into other iterations of Halo games, it usually doesn't translate smoothly. The fact of the matter is, every Halo game plays differently. Just because one map plays well in one Halo game does not necessarily mean it will perform well in the other titles. And it's not because it's a bad map by any means, it's just that it doesn't coincide well in the other game sandbox. It's not even a matter of whether it's classic versus modern movement. Most maps in Halo 2 would just not work out in Halo 3 solely based off of Halo 2 being hit scan versus Halo 3's projectile bullet registration. Halo 1 and 2 both had extremely strong weapons as starting loadouts, therefore maps were designed to be a lot more segmented, cover-based, and more intricate to navigate. Halo 3 on the other hand, with its projectile-based bullet registration, challenged players to try and close distance between each other in order to have a higher chance of making their shots connect. Whereas in games like Halo 5, players were encouraged to use the advanced movement mechanics as elements to their strafes to avoid taking damage from enemies cross-map. Every now and then there will be maps that work pretty well, like Midship to Heretic to Truth, but even then these maps need to be scaled up or down to account for the different sandbox mechanics each game had. Generally speaking, in any multiplayer game, I find remakes an inefficient use of time and resources. Of course, it's very cool to include fan favorites as a way to feed into the community's nostalgia and a way to give back to the community, but if a map remake is being labeled as a new map addition, it feels a little lackluster to me. Map remakes should not take the place of a potential new original map in the development cycle of the map pool. To add to this point, Halo has something that not many other video game franchises have, and that's Forge mode. At this point, we've all seen just how talented the Forge community is, and how these creators have pushed Forge beyond their limits to create things that we never thought was possible in Halo. So I can almost guarantee that within the first week of Halo Infinite's launch, there will be someone out there who already forged a remake of your favorite Halo map. The blueprint is already there. All it takes is for one of the many talented individuals in our Halo community to make a one-by-one remake. The last component I want to touch on in this video is the storytelling. No, I don't mean from the campaign, I mean the story that each map tells. The maps in Halo aren't just set pieces, they are characters in their own rights. They each have a story to tell that makes them unique. The greatest Halo maps are the ones that have a sense of mystery about them, that leave you wondering what happened here, and where the map is located in the Halo universe. From the skybox to the ambient sounds, the lighting, the weather, all the way down to the geometry of the map. Every little nook and cranny has a purpose, whether for gameplay, lore, or even both. And that is something I missed from past Halo titles and maps. I want to be able to spend hours on end in custom games or Forge exploring the map and see what secrets lie. Having little Easter eggs where the hidden skulls were in Halo 3's Mythic Map Pack, or the giant worm that would appear off in the distance in Halo 5's The Rig. So far in Halo Infinite, it looks like most of the maps we've seen have some kind of human and UNSC themed settings. I would love to see some more Covenant or Banished themed maps as well as Forerunner. Maps that give us information about exactly where we are and what is going on in the Halo's ever-expanding universe. Of course, there's so much more that goes into creating multiplayer maps, and I can't imagine what the development process is like for video game developers. These 3 or 4 components are just things that I look for specifically when gauging whether I think a Halo map is good or not. As stated previously, I think Halo Infinite Sandbox looks promising, and I can't wait for the opportunity to play it and try out all the new mechanics. All I hope is that we have maps at launch that let us explore the sandbox and use all the equipment to its fullest potential. But for now, all we can do is speculate until we get our hands on the flying tests that are expected to be sent out later this summer. I also want to personally thank and shout out fellow content creators Vito, Trunks, and Real Halo MC for providing me with their very valuable insight. They gave me different perspectives as well as helped me formulate my thoughts on the matter for this video. Go check them out if you got the time. And lastly, thank you to everyone for watching this video and hearing my thoughts. As a bonus, I'd love to read what your guys' favorite Halo map is and what you think makes a Halo map great. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'd love to gain more perspective. But until next time, stay safe, be kind, and be respectful. Much love.